Good morning. Welcome to today's Diversity and Inclusion webinar. My name is Amy Allen, and I am the Senior Program Manager for the National Apartment Association's Education Institute. Thank you for joining us today for this important topic. Before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping points. This presentation is being recorded and will be posted on the Diversity and Inclusion Resources page of the NAA website early next week. You'll be able to find it there and share it with friends after the session. During the discussion, you may type your questions into the chat box and we will share them with our panelists. We've reserved some time at the end of the presentation for your questions, so continue to type them in throughout and we will get to them at the end. Now I'm going to turn the microphone over to Jay Lopeman, a member of NAA's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, to introduce today's panelists. Jay?
Thank you so much, and thanks everybody for attending. It is my honor this morning to introduce our panelists for today's discussion. I'd like to start with Chikora Connor, founder and CEO of Occupancy Heroes, and she is recognized as the most influential woman in Charlotte, North Carolina, and serves on various NAAEI committees. She was one of 100 entrepreneurs from across the country to visit the White House in advocacy of minority entrepreneurship. In the past year, her apprenticeship program has trained and employed more than 300 people. As a notable trainer, she helps owners nationwide increase revenue even during the pandemic. Chikora continues to champion affordable housing and diversity and inclusion. Also to note, this is a family mission for Chikora and her family, from grandparents to children. She was born into this industry and has been involved for the past 20 years. Also, Dana Hill has served as a multifamily industry leader for 29 years, holding leadership positions at RentPath, formerly known as Apartment Guide, for Rent.com Atlanta, General Sales Manager, Director of Sales Southeast with Mobile Dorman, and currently Southeast National Sales with Grace Hill. She generously lends her time and talent serving on the board of directors of the Atlanta Apartment Association, the Atlanta Apartment Association Associates Council, as well as the advisory board of the nonprofit Apartment Life. Dana resides in Atlanta, Georgia, and enjoys spending time with her family. She loves to travel and give back to her community, serving as the co-chair of the Atlanta Apartment Association's Can Ball, benefiting the Atlanta Community Food Bank. In her free time, she can be found somewhere following her favorite local bands and supporting the art of live music. Karen Key. Karen Key is the Senior Director of Operations for Rangewater Real Estate in the Property Management Division. She is responsible for supporting the Executive Managing Director and overseeing the operations of the Management Division, maintaining client relations, and overseeing a client-based portfolio. Karen joined Rangewater in 2014 with more than 15 years of management, mostly in multifamily. Her experience includes the direct management of properties ranging from lease-ups to new developments to value-add renovations, and most recently, single-family rental communities. Karen has extensive knowledge in the Atlanta, Mid-Atlantic, and Florida markets. Karen earned her Bachelor of Science degree in Hospitality Administration with an emphasis in business management from Georgia Southern University. She is an executive certified property manager through the Institute of Real Estate Management. Ty McMath is the founder of Torch Fitness LLC, a locally owned fitness company operating in Atlanta. Torch Fitness LLC began in 2007 with one boot camp and now has grown into one of the top companies offering personal training and group fitness within Atlanta. The mission of Torch Fitness LLC is to promote a healthy, active lifestyle by tailoring a fitness regimen which meets members' personal preferences and daily routines. And last but not least, Eric Woodson. Eric Woodson is the CEO, founder, and speaker, is a quintessential guide to some of business's top executives, developers, and owners. As a lifelong purveyor of marketing services, he has found his zenith as a master strategist in driving traffic to over 100,000 units of multifamily real estate. Beyond leading the way in digital, he has passionately cultivated other leaders to be the source of cool culture within their own organizations. As CEO of the Cool Source, an Atlanta-based award-winning integrated marketing agency, he has blazed a trail as a leader in the digital space and a growing team of highly credentialed marketers and creatives offering services from SEO, PPC, content development, and strategy. Making the Inc. 5000 list 2 years consecutively, the Cool Source is a premier Google partner and recognized by the Atlanta Business Chronicle Pacesetters Award. A family man, philanthropist, and advocate for youth and entrepreneurship, Eric strives to present opportunities for growing businesses and supplier diversity within the industry. And with that, I will turn it over to Chikora.
Thank you, Jay, for those amazing introductions and for all that you do for our industry. You are appreciated. Now, I am even more eager to hear from these amazing panelists. I know that we're all excited to hear perspectives from both the owner-operator side as well as the supplier side. So first, let's greet our audience. Good morning, audience. And now that you guys have learned a little bit about our panelists, we would love to learn a little bit about our audience. So a poll is going to appear on the screen. We'd love it if you just take a moment to tell us your role in your organization. Are you on the owner-operator side? Are you on the supplier side? Or are you one of our amazing affiliate members? So if you could just click that button. And let's see. Awesome. We will just take a few more seconds. Okay. Amy, do we have the results? Let's see. Okay, this is good. So the bulk of our attendees today are coming from the supplier side. We most definitely have some on-site folks as well, corporate level. I'm excited. This is wonderful because we know that in order for this thing to work, everyone has got to be involved. So that is wonderful. And we know that whether or not companies need diversity is a constant topic of conversation in just about any industry. But no matter how much or how long people talk about it, the answer is always going to remain emphatically yes. Yes, because diversity is a necessity. But what about our supplier members? They matter too. Owners and management firms must think about the people that service their communities and their residents. Diversity is not just about building a better employer and consumer brand. It has tangible benefits to productivity, creativity, and ROI. Our supplier members provide so many attributes that benefit your companies in a positive way. Therefore, both our owner-operators and supplier members must all strive for a more diverse workforce. So before we jump into our panel discussion, let's just take a moment to view a brief presentation so that we know why we're here today. So Amy, if you would put that slide up for me. Awesome. So today we want you to think about who earns your business and why. Next slide, Amy. Now we're going to have a group question and we want to hear from you. So if you would just take a moment and answer this question in the comment section. The question is this: what if we look at diversity and inclusion from a supplier's perspective? How does diversity and inclusion help companies achieve their goal? If we could just put some comments in there. Again, that question, what if we look at diversity and inclusion from a supplier's perspective? How does diversity and inclusion help companies achieve their goals? Unfortunately, I can't see the chat right now, so I don't know what your comments are, but I can tell you this, we are going to go back to those comments and we want to see them. We love that you guys are involved. So I'm going to move along. Next slide, Amy. Now, what you will learn today. Today, number one, you'll learn what is supplier diversity and why is it important, the benefits of supplier diversity, and how to grow your revenue through supplier diversity. So, in the words of Maya Angelou, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, you do better. So today, you're gonna know better, so we want you to do better. Next slide, Amy. The benefits. Everybody wants to know what's in it for me, right? So let's talk about it. A study by BCG Consulting found that instead of focusing on a specific area of diversity, focusing on creating teams that have multiple areas of diversity has more value. So that says that diverse teams find solutions that takes into account multiple angles of the problem, thus making the solution stronger, well-rounded, and optimized. Therefore, diversity is key for company bottom line. Glassdoor reports that more than 50% of individuals deem diversity in the workplace as a problem factor when it comes to deciding whether to work with a company or not. Workplace diversity not only drives the company's culture, but it also helps better talent. McKinsey and Company report that businesses with higher workplace diversity perform financially better compared to those to their counterparts that do not. Businesses with the highest level of workplace diversity report 10 times more sales revenue compared to companies with low levels of workplace diversity. Yes, that's right. Businesses with higher levels of workplace diversity are known to attain greater profits. So I want us to think about that. When we talk about workplace diversity, we're talking about a group as a whole, right? We're talking about management teams. When you bring on supplier members, those are different management teams that you're bringing into your organization to help you. All right, next slide, Amy. And of course, we want to hear from Forbes. Forbes has found that increasing diversity has a direct effect on the bottom line. Companies that have more diverse management teams have 19% higher revenue. That's 19. That's huge. Next slide, please, Amy. Cultivating multiculturalism. Behind a great multicultural community, you'll often find a diverse group of suppliers that cares about the diversity of its residents. Let me say that again. Behind a great multicultural community, you'll often find a diverse group of suppliers that cares about the diversity of its residents. So let's take Sugar Land, Texas, for example. After being named the nation's first community of respect by the Anti-Defamation League in 2008, the city, located only 20 miles southeast of Houston, was recognized for the third year in a row in 2010 for its commitment to creating an inclusive community. And they speak about it often. This was not something that they did on their own. It took supplier members to assist. It took everybody in order to get those accolades. And I just want us to take a look at the image here. You see, it's like a whole conglomerate. It's so diverse. This is what our communities look like. So this is what we should look like. Our supplier members, they have to be able to connect. Next slide, please. And we put this up here. All supplier members must know that their voice matters. Now, this picture was taken from one of our affiliate members' websites, and they were doing a great job at saying, hey, Products and Services Council, let's talk about our supplier members. Let's come in for a business meeting. The thing that wasn't so great is that oftentimes we hear from our supplier members that they don't see themselves in the room. And unfortunately, everybody doesn't see themselves in the room in this picture. So today we're going to talk about making a change, not only with our supplier members, but also through our affiliates and our associate members. So if we can, next slide, please. And what do we want? All supplier members are heard. They want to be heard. And so that's what we're doing today. So we're going to close out on that. We finished with that. So we will move along. So now that everyone has a clear understanding of why we're here today, then we're going to move on to the panelists, which is so exciting. So first question, and we're going to ask this question of all of our panelists today. We're going to ask them to define supplier diversity and why it's important to them. I'm going to start with you, Dana. Can you define supplier diversity and why it's important to you?
Well, thank you, Chikora, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and add my voice to the conversation today. Supplier diversity, I think you defined it very well in the slides that you opened up with. It is the opportunity to give everybody in the organization who sometimes are marginalized in our community, sometimes not given the opportunity to be seen or heard, or an opportunity to participate in free enterprise within multifamily. And they look like me, they look like you, they look like the picture that you showed on the screen. It's everybody being given a voice, but particularly those that have been marginalized. And it's important to me because it is a direct impact for me. I am a minority who works in the multifamily industry. And fortunately, I'm associated with an organization, Grace Hill, that has a long standing, huge reputation in the marketplace. But there are many people, certainly having served on Associates Council, that don't have that support of a large organization behind them. And it does not give them access, the access to opportunity and growth within our industry. And I want to be a part of making sure that changes going forward.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Dana. And it looks like you're taking great strides to making that happen. So thank you. Eric, you're up next. How do you define supplier diversity and why is it important to you?
Yeah, just building off of what Dana said and what you said in the slide, Shakura, it's really is having the opportunity, right? But you know what's important to me and what people always ask me is like, oh, how did you get in? How are you doing what you're doing? You know, when I did get an opportunity, I took advantage of it, right? You know, you have to do good work. So we all want opportunities. We all want to get a seat at the table, but it's very important to understand once you get that seat, you have to perform, right? You have to stay there. You know, a story I like to tell is, you know, Tom Brady was a 6th round pick by the New England Patriots, and you know, Drew Bledsoe got hurt. He got an opportunity to go in the game, and 6 Super Bowls later, he's, you know, maybe the greatest quarterback in NFL history. He took advantage of his opportunity once he got in. And if he got in and he played bad or performed bad, we may have never heard of Tom Brady. So, you know, it's just very important, you know, when we do get the opportunity, when we do get the seat, when we have an opportunity to get our voices heard, we have to seize upon that and perform. So, you know, I just want to take a little different spin on what Dana said, but it's really just about performing once we do get the seat, period.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're so right. You're so right. Thank you for that, Eric. Karen, you're up next.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So I kind of laughed when Eric was speaking because he stole one of my themes, because I think the big thing for me, I'll start with the definition. So for me, I mean, when you talk about the definition of the diversity, it's not just having the variety, but it is being intentional about seeking out the variety. It's one thing to say you have variety, but if you're not intentionally seeking it out, and this is where Eric stole my thunder, to make sure everyone has a seat at the table and has that opportunity, then you may not really be diverse. You may not be intentionally not being diverse, but when it comes to really that diversity and inclusion, it's knowing how you're seeking it out and bringing everyone to the table. But for me, when we look at diversity, and it's what you said in the slides, I mean, diversity is going to keep the ideas fresh. It's going to keep thoughts coming from outside the box, and it's going to keep you and your company from getting stagnant and just operating as you always have. It's going to push you to go in the new direction and push you to be better than you were the day before.
Absolutely. Great information, Karen. We appreciate that. And we've got in the comments here, Melissa White said that diversity is good for business and for teams. So yes, true indeed. Ty, how do you define supplier diversity and why is it important to you?
Yeah, just like Karen said, I think Eric and Karen and Dana stole all my answers.
I'm just glad I wasn't last.
I'm telling you. But I'm with Karen. It has to be intentional. And not to put Karen on the spot or Tracy at Rangewater, but I'm so grateful. As Dana said, I didn't have the big company behind me when I started in this industry. I needed Karen, I needed Tracy Bowers, I needed Sid McDonald, I needed Melissa to be intentional in including me and helping me not only have a seat at the table, but I remember going to grand openings and Rangewater would invite me to grand openings, and I really had no reason to be at these grand openings. I would just show up. But but going there, I remember even Mark Pollock pulling me aside and talking to me about the industry. And as Eric said, asking the right questions, showing up when my time was called or when my number was called. So I just think about diversity being intentional and being direct. Now here at Valley Living, we're intentional about our diversity program and really making sure we're not only just making it a focus, but we're bringing people in and we're having the discussion, even the hard ones.
That's great. So I love being intentional. That's great. I love it. Okay, so let's see our next question here. Let's see. I say we give it to Karen. So now that we've talked about supplier diversity and why it's important, tell me, what are the benefits of supplier diversity? Karen, can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I hit on it a little bit with my last answer, right? I mean, when you look at the benefits of supplier diversity, it is making sure that, one, I mean, look at our industry. Let's just start there. If you look at our resident base, if you look at our prospect base, we have probably one of the most diverse customer service bases of any industry, because we are in every market. We're servicing so many neighborhoods, and we are providing their home. We're providing what's supposed to be their haven. Right. So if we have diverse vendors, they're going to help us as a company understand what our resident and what our prospect base needs. They're going to help us relate to them on a level that we might not even realize we needed to relate to them on. From a business standpoint, on the flip side, and Ty hit on this a little bit, I mean, when we formed Matrix back in the day, which is now Rangewater, for those of you that may not have followed that train, Matrix is Rangewater, we're one and the same, but when we formed Matrix back in the day, we were a small company. And Tracy was intentional about diversity in a different way. I think when we looked at vendor partners, we didn't necessarily look at it the way we're looking at it today, but she was intentional about seeking out those smaller companies. She was intentional about seeking out startups because she wanted to be seen as different in the industry. She wanted to make sure we were pushing the envelope and setting the standard. And in doing so, I mean, that brought me to a lot of the people on this panel with me that have been just those tried and true partners for us that helped us become what we are today. And without that diversity, without Ty and without Eric and without Dana pushing us along, we would not be where Rangewater is today. So it's the benefits of seeing things from everyone's point of view and learning how to apply it to make the people you're servicing and the people that are working with you the best that they can be.
That's great. Wonderful. Great information. I think we can all learn from that. Dana, you were mentioned, so let's go to you next. What would you say? What are the benefits of supplier diversity?
One of the things that you pointed out has to do with the economic benefit to a company to be inclusive and to be diverse in their selection of supplier partners. One of the things that I think come out of that, to Karen's point, is the fact that those partners are able to give you some insight into the perspective and the wants and needs of the resident base that you have that you may not have uncovered. So they help you to uncover some blind spots that you may have in your business. Additionally, though, I think that partnering with minority supplier companies often are not large companies. They are startups. They are your smaller organizations. And through that partnership, you have the ability to be much more flexible and much more nimble than a lot of the larger companies. And so when you partner with some of these suppliers, minority suppliers, and smaller companies, in terms of what you benefit as a company is going to far surpass what you may find in terms of the economic benefit of partnering with a larger company. Larger companies can scale often, but when you partner with someone who is going to be intentional, as we use the word today, intentional about supplying you with the best in-class services and doing that according to your company's goals and align with your initiatives, they have the ability to do that, and they have the flexibility to do that certainly more often than larger organizations.
You're so right, Dana. And you spoke about the residents and working with those supplier partners and them being able to assist and uncover things that maybe the management companies wouldn't see. When you said that, I thought about even bilingual. We, a lot of times they have to bring in people who can, gosh, what do you say? When they're bilingual.
Translator.
Translate.
Yes,
Oh.
yes, yes.
I thought that was too easy to be the answer.
See, look, I need a translator now. But I mean, that's wonderful. There are just simple things like that you don't even think about. So I think that's wonderful. Great point. Great point indeed. Okay, Eric, what do you think the benefits are of supplier diversity?
Well, I was listening to everyone talk. It's I can't count the times I've looked at, marketing material, when a property was coming online and things like that. And it's like, wait a minute, y'all got this all wrong. This whole thing is wrong. You need to change this because you're not speaking to the people that are even in the area. And it's just you're missing the mark on this because, whether they, got some faulty information or, just some people having a diverse team and a diverse network of suppliers, it allows you to look at things through different lens. So, my partners could call me and say, hey, what do you think about this? How does this messaging feel to you? And, and I respond truthfully and they respect my opinion, you know what I mean? And oftentimes, they change up what they're going to do because they realize like, yeah, we didn't look at it that way.
Right.
So the more diverse you are, like you said, whether it's, language that having a bilingual team, having, men, women, just all kinds of people that you can tap into to really reach your audience and to really take care of your residents. And, having, that diverse supply network and something Dana said, being able to grow with a company, piggybacking off Ty, I really got my start in this with Tracy Bowers at Matrix, now Rangewater. And Tracy, put me on one property, then she put me on 5. And as, Matrix grew, I grew too. So we grew together and they were able to say, hey, Eric, can we do this? Can we do that? And I was able to change as they grow and able to be flexible to their needs. And that's how we operate now with all our partners. When somebody asks for something, we try to accommodate them and incorporate it into our other partners. So, definitely partnering with smaller, more diverse teams is the way to go. And it just makes all the sense in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I gotta say, Eric, when you mentioned the marketing, I think we're all in marketing.
Yeah.
And that just made me chuckle because how many times has that happened?
Every day. Every day.
Exactly.
Wait a minute,
exactly.
where the Black people at? Don't they live in this neighborhood?
Exactly. So yeah, okay, so that's a great information. And it seems that, so many agree with the way that you guys are thinking. And I say that because companies like Grubhub and so many other service providers are offering diversity options now on their platform. So who would have ever thought that you'd be able to pick a place to order food and have an option to select from, someone who's dedicated to diversity? Or even let's talk about Amazon. As they've even made it to whereas you can shop online and be intentional about your spending. They now have options to select for purchases from women-owned businesses, minority-owned, and so many other classified categories. And, Amazon reported that sales increased in all those areas. So that's a big deal, and it speaks volumes. Now, what is the intentionality of seeking diverse vendor relationships, Karen?
So, you hit on a lot of it, right? So you go anywhere you go right now, whether it's the Grubhub, the Uber Eats, the Amazon, you can be intentional, whether that is seeking out a minority owned business or if it's a locally owned and operated, because those are minority in themselves, right? They're not that big chain that's sitting on the corner. But I think that, and I'm so glad I got invited to be part of this panel, because when you guys asked me these questions in the beginning, it was, wow, okay, what do we do to really be intentional? And I had to step back and think about how we've done it in the past and what we do now and how we can change it up. And I definitely feel that we have room to grow. Like Eric and Taya both hit on, these guys were instrumental in our company in the baby stages and as we've grown, and we couldn't have done it without them. But, how do we continue to do that? How do we continue to seek it out? And I think as an industry, if we had a way to create that same type database, whether it's locally submarket or if it's a national company, however it is, if we can be intentional, we don't have a way to be intentional right now. We only know who we know, or we get a referral from someone else, or we go to someone and they're like, hey, do you know someone? But even then, you don't know what doors you're not opening. So if we had a way to seek it out and be intentional and go, hey, who are some people in this area that are minority owned businesses, that are local owned and operated? How can we find them to get them that opportunity to come and, back to Eric's point, have a seat at the table and have that opportunity to meet with us and potentially help them grow their business and come in something larger and bring us the fresh perspective that they have?
That is great. I think that is wonderful. Can't wait till that happens. I'm confident that it will happen. And Karen, I've been told that, not even been told, I've seen you guys have been amazing over there at Range Water, and you've been very intentional about bringing on diverse supplier members and just all around shaking things up a bit. So can you give us some resources? Where are you getting these guys from? What's happening? How are you doing this?
You know what? My biggest resource, and they've all said the name, is Tracy Bowers. People and connections and finding out, who it is that needs that opportunity. That is one of her greatest talents. She is just naturally gifted at that. And Tracy is very intentional in so many parts of her life. And in that, it's the way she cultivates and develops her friendships with people within the industry. And so because she wants to understand the variety of cultures that we touch and that we impact. And in doing that, she has created this networking group to where she gets information from people of all walks of life and of all cultural backgrounds. And they reach out to her, they seek her genuineness. And so whether it's they have a business or they have a friend that has a business, they reach out to her. And so that has opened our doors, in my opinion, to being exposed to a lot more vendor partners than some of the larger companies do, because so many people are gravitated towards her and towards that relationship. And in doing so, when we've started those relationships, it's using those vendor partners to help us find more vendor partners that they may know through their networking groups that are on the same path or that are like them and not just like the majority of people that we come in contact with. And then as for the company as a whole, we do have a diversity and inclusion committee. And that is one of our big initiatives, is it's looking at it from all facets of operation, whether it's our vendor partners, it's our hiring practices, it's our promotion practices. It's making sure we are stopping and not just, because we grow fast, and we have grown fast a lot lately. It's so easy to just turn to the person you know and say, hey, I need you to do this. I need you to take on that. But it forces us to slow down and really make sure we're taking the time to explore the opportunities for everyone who may be interested in going in whatever direction we're going in.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. I got to tell you, it sounds like we need to replicate Tracy Powers. And Tracy, just know that you will be getting a lot of phone calls. And I am sure that you will intentionally answer the calls. All right, so thank you so much for that. Let's see here. We've got another question. How do we grow revenue through supplier diversity? Ty, you have done so much within this industry. You've built a business, you sold a business, you built another. Tell us about it. How do we do it?
Well, I do want to say, I wish we can like make 1,000 Tracy Bowers. Let me reiterate that. And to Karen's point, I do want to say this: we become a recruiting tool for management companies.
Yes,
By them using us as a supplier, we truly become a recruiting tool. We become a marketing source on social media, because when I was going to those grand openings, or whenever I toured a community, they can use that marketing piece and put it on their social media. So that is a huge benefit, to go back to that last thing that Karen was saying, not only from a recruiting, but it truly embodies diversity, because we are an extension of the staff. So whenever they use a diverse supplier or vendor, we become a part of that staff. So many people thought I worked for Greystar or Perennial or all those companies before. So that does help a lot. But to your question, as far as growing and scaling, as you just hit on, when we started, we had 3 communities. One of those was a Matrix, Rangewater, Greystar, and we were able to grow by what Dana was saying, was being flexible and being intentional as far as listening to our vendors and their needs. By us being so small, we were able to go to Nashville and really replicate what they were doing in Nashville. We went to Louisville. We were able to go to Tampa and do all those things. And being obviously a minority or an African-American supplier, a lot of times when I go in the room, there wasn't a lot of people that looked just like me. But thank God for like the Dana Hills of the world, right? That was in at one of those conferences that will pull me to the side. And then she will give me contacts in Nashville, contacts in Tampa, contacts in Austin, Texas. And so I just encourage a lot of suppliers, we have to be intentional about diversity as well, and opening up to, having that conversation with another vendor like an Eric, or another vendor relationship like a Dana, and really helping open those doors. And because Dana opened those doors, I was able to get more business. And because, other minority vendors opened those doors, I was able to grow and eventually be in 26 different states and over 150,000 units, and now being purchased by Valley Living, who represents 1.6 million units. And that was in a span of 8 years. So, it's all about being intentional from the supplier side and the management company side.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's something that we can all listen to and we can all learn from and advance from. So we've got to be intentional. You've got to be intentional with all these relationships. Be intentional with your networking. Don't just go to these events and think, oh, yay, here I am. You got to do the work all the way down to the social media. So that's great advice, Ty. Thank you for that. Now, Eric, how do you grow your revenue through supplier diversity? I mean, you guys, you're all over the place. You're award winning. I mean, you're all over. Tell us, how do you do
We are all over.
it?
For me, the biggest thing for me, and I realized this some years ago, it can't just be about business, right? You have to take time to know who your partners are. You know, I could, since we're talking about Tracy all day, I know Tracy, I know her husband, I know her kids, I know these things. I know the whole team, everybody calls me, everybody has my cell phone, everybody texts me. And that's how I am with all of my partners. Like it becomes personal, and people tend to do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. And that's how you build that, by not just being about business. Oftentimes I'll send an email that has nothing to do with what I do, say, hey, this might help you, or you might want to check this out. So you have to be intentional with sharing information, with talking to people, with just kind of building that bond and that bridge. So it's like, oh, they think of something, oh, I need to call Eric. Well, I get so many phone calls that have nothing to do with marketing. Nothing. It's like I'm like wise counsel. Like, hey, Eric, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And we might be on the phone for an hour, and I don't send an invoice. You know what I mean? It's just, I'm just happy they reached out to me because they thought I know a thing or two about a thing or two. So, just to other vendors out there, try to find something, some commonality, some kind of equalizer, something that you can relate to. I have a quick story. Melissa always laughs at me about this one. Particular owner, I'm not gonna say his name. He had property. I came in, and I could tell off the bat he didn't know I was Black. So he's kind of looking at me, and he's just doing his owner thing and ripping into everybody, and just kind of giving me all kind of fits. And he happens to look out the window because we were on the ground level, and he sees, this is some years ago, he sees a car, and he just made an offhand comment about the car. It's a Tesla. He's like, oh, I love those cars, man. I said, hey, you want to go for a ride? And he said, that's your car? I said, yeah. So we left the meeting. There was 8 people in the meeting. We left. We went for a ride. We rode around for about 30 minutes, just talking. He's one of my best friends now. That's my guy. So many properties later, so much business later, we found something to bond over. And, now he knows me, likes me, trusts me, knows my family. I know his family. So it's just, I just use that story. There's something there. We have to find those moments and find those opportunities and educate ourselves outside of our, particular, business, and try to connect with people on a human level. Can't just be about a check.
Right. Very good. Thank you for that, Eric. Great story. I have a similar story, actually, for another day. But I tell you,
I'm gonna call you. I want to hear it.
I tell you, it's about authenticity. You have to be authentic. That would have never happened if you were just prancing around trying to be fake. Now, everyone, you've got to listen to these stories. You've got to take in this information and this advice. You can't run out and just do it and say, okay, well, I'm going to go and meet your friends and family. You got to be authentic. You've got to be real about it. Okay. Don't force it. Just make it.
No, don't force it. It's natural. Just let it happen.
That's right. That's right. So I thank you so much for that, Eric. That was great. Now let's pose a question to you, Dana. How does diversity or lack thereof affect supplier membership involvement? Can you talk about that? You've got a ton of experience with the associations.
There was so much said from my panelists, co-panelists, that I wanted to piggyback on. I'm trying to organize my thoughts so that I can really touch on the importance of being intentional, not just us as suppliers, minority suppliers being intentional, but our industry needs to be intentional. That's important not only to multifamily specifically, but it is a broader impact to the effects that we have and the impact that we can have on the world we are living in. I served on membership several years. And through that, one of the things that we often talk about is the networking, but we also talk about the legislative benefits of partnering with the associations, right? And with that, that means that there are dollars that we contribute with our membership that goes towards PAC. And if we are intentional about including a broader base, a larger base that says we are opening the doors to be accessible, to all members of our association, not just the big guys, but all members, the smaller companies, the female run companies, the Hispanic companies, our Latino partners, African American partners, Asian partners. When we do that, we increase not only the membership dollars that are being contributed to the multifamily industry, but we contribute to dollars that are going to be able to impact legislation on our behalf so that our voices are heard in a larger scope. We live in a world of free enterprise. Free enterprise means that we want to say, hey, you're welcome to come into the game. Bring, as you all mentioned, bring your best self to the game when you're given opportunity. That means show up prepared, show up ready, show up to be authentic, and show up to be able to make a difference. Find what your niche is. But in order to do that, our industry needs to be open to being intentional about giving access and pathways for minority companies. Karen touched on this. She's been able to network through Tracy's intentional relationships. And Dr. Debbie, I have to give an ode to her, her net weaving.
Yes.
Net weaving is important. But guys, what about those that I don't get to touch? Ty doesn't get to touch. Tracy doesn't get to touch. Those guys are unsung heroes that could be making a huge difference and a real impact on free enterprise. When we limit the voices at the table, it hurts the industry as a whole. Because what does free enterprise create? It creates natural competition. And what comes out of competition? Ingenuity comes out of competition. So we limit ourselves. Our industry is negatively impacted when we don't create a pathway to be fully inclusive. That's real important to us, not only today. I've been on the forefront of this. Thank you guys for you all who said, hey, Dana put me in connection with this person. Dana created that networking opportunity. But I'm one person, right? And we want to replicate that. So Ty's paying it forward, and Eric's paying it forward, and Cora's paying it forward, and Melissa, and I can go on. But if we really were intentional about having a resource that people could go to say, I want, like the Grubhubs, like the Amazons of the world, multifamily needs to be a leader in that effort as well. And we need to be intentional about giving a resource to those people who don't have the opportunity to connect with a Ty or to connect with an Eric or Dana Hill or a Tracy Bowers for that matter. And I am going to challenge multifamily today. When we talk about that we put on our site that we are going to stand against people being marginalized and minorities not being supported. We're going to stand against that. That's saying that we do not support racism. But there's something more important here. Anti-racism. Anti-racism means we are going to be intentional about creating opportunities for our full body membership. And I challenge multifamily to do that today. We'll see it in our bottom line. When we're talking about PAC dollars to be able to initiate and affect legislative change, well, guess what these members are going to do? When they are supported, when they are being successful through this industry, they're going to give back to the industry that supported them. So we all win when we create an opportunity to put everybody that is going to come prepared and ready. Not anybody, but everybody that's prepared and ready, who's done the work, should be given the opportunity. And you probably could hear my passion. I probably went a little longer than you expected.
Preach, preach.
You guys said things,
Great.
every one of you said things that I was like, how can I bring that together to be one holistic approach to how we stand together to be more inclusive?
Wow. Dana, you just said a mouthful. I mean, hear our plea. That was wonderful. I thank you so much. I thank you so much for that. That really kind of wrapped everything up for us. I do want to ask Ty. Ty, how does diversity or lack thereof affect supplier membership and involvement, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, why do you have me following up after Dana just gave us that word? There's nothing. Listen, I appreciate it.
The know-all, right? When it comes
I know.
to
Thank God. We need 100 more Danas as well. So she's helped out the small guys. But I would be quick, and I'll say this. You know, when I started our company, we only had 3 employees. And so it was important, and I'm going to continue to use this word because I want people to hear it. It was important for people to be intentional, because when I saw different smiles in that room, it made me want to come back to that meeting. You know, those meetings can get really lonely. And when you're there and you're the only person in the room and you're the only person of color in the room, and you go and you chase the people you know. That's why Eric says you know their mom and their kids, because they're the only people that you talk to for about 2 hours. So when you have people like myself in the room that smiles at another vendor or a supplier and introduces them, not just talk to them, but then introduces them to the Karen or to the Tracy or to the Melissa, that helps spread that word. And then the second thing I will say is, now that we've joined and we're so proud to be a part of Valley Living, I'm on the Diversity and Inclusion Council with Valley Living. And being able to now see it from a wider view. You know, Valley Living is a leader in this industry. And I know my intentions in making sure we stay true and stay intentional with helping not only other vendors out, but helping different management companies and holding them accountable. And I'm with Dana with challenging our industry, with not just having these panels, which is awesome, but let's really get together and impact. Because the multifamily industry, I think, could be just as impactful as the sports industry, just as impactful as the tech industry, with diversity and inclusion. I actually think we can be leaders in it, but it takes us at Valley Living, it takes the great stars of the world, it takes our leaders to really push that needle and move us over the finish line. So I would say that I'm just so grateful to be on the panel once again, but I'm looking forward to taking this and then bringing it to the streets and really pushing us past and forward.
Thank you, Ty. You know what, that was great information. There's been so much information here today that has been shared, and it's just wonderful. And I hope that everyone is listening, everyone is taking note, and I really hope that everyone is going to bring about a change. And Ty, you spoke about advocating for your fellow supplier members. You know, I would be remiss not to mention Miss Melissa White. Yeah. She has been phenomenal throughout this entire series for our diversity inclusion. And she's on here today. Her camera is turned off, but Melissa, I would be honored if you would come on and close out for us.
Cora, you got it wrong. It's Melissa D. White.
E. White.
Melissa
Yeah, there's
D.
about
White.
4 Melissa Whites, right?
Melissa, can you jump on with us?
Oh wow, that was very unexpected. But I'm humbled, I'm honored to sit among just giants. You all are giants, not because of what you do, but your intentionality, as we've used that word, to serve. You're servant leaders. I mean that. This series, I hope for everyone that's listening, if you missed any of it, go back. Like, make it a point to sit with your teams with all of this information, and then take every call to action. I'm pretty certain every single one of these diversity webinars hosted through NAA had a call to action. So we can talk about change, or we can affect change by doing something. Thank you, Jacora, for bringing me to the table. And that's really what it's about. When you're at the table, pull up another chair for someone else. That's truly what we've said the entire time. We hope that you all caught the essence of this particular webinar, which was different from all the others, which talked about team members, team diversity, which is critical, yes.
Oh, yeah.
But begin to look at suppliers as parts and as partners and parts of your team. That's the essence of everything we're saying. So I honor each one of you. To our multifamily family, take this information and let's be greater, because we know we have the capacity to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are at the end now. Amy, tell us what to do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you also to our amazing panel. I'm going to just share our final slide here, just to give everyone a heads up about the diversity and inclusion sessions that will be available at APT Virtual next week, which is NAA's virtual annual conference. And we hope that you'll all be there having booths. And but if you have the opportunity to sit in on these sessions will be focused on diversity and inclusion issues. If anybody does have any more questions for the panelists, we're happy to address those to the panelists. But if not, we'll give it a minute to see if any questions come in, if anybody has anything specific they want to ask. Also to remind you that this session was recorded and we will be posting it on the website next week. What is the question here? Can this be shared with associations as a webinar to share with their members? That's a great idea, Rose. Thank you for that. It will be posted on the NAA website, as I mentioned, on the diversity and inclusion page, but we can certainly share the link to it. I can send that out to the affiliates as part of our monthly call. I'll add that to our agenda. We're moving our affiliate webinar to 2 weeks from now, and I will share that information with the affiliates so that they're aware not just of this webinar, but the whole series, so that they can share those with their members as well. Thanks for that great idea.